In Washington this week, the January 6th Select Committee laid out in brutal detail the more than 3 hours inside the White House when former President Donald Trump refused to act while the Capitol was under attack by his own supporters. Washington correspondent Hannah Brandt has more for us.
He chose not to act.
The January 6th committee says when rioters stormed the Capitol, former President Donald Trump watched the chaos unfold on television and did nothing to stop it for hours.
The mob was accomplishing President Trump's purpose, so of course he didn't intervene.
Lawmakers supported that claim with testimony from members of Trump's team.
I think I was pretty clear there needed to be an immediate and forceful response statement, public statement that people need to leave the Capitol now.
As rioters threatened to hang then Vice President Mike Pence, a former security official testified that Pence's Secret Service were so afraid for their lives, they were calling family members to say goodbye. But the former president chose to tweet a message blaming Pence for not stopping the election certification.
For him to tweet out the message about Mike Pence, it was him pouring gasoline on the fire and making it much worse.
Former President Trump did post a video to Twitter on January 6th, more than 3 hours after the Capitol attack began.
So go home. We love you. You're very special.
But the committee says his actions were too little and came too late.
He refused to defend our nation and our Constitution. He refused to do what every American president must.
In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
Hannah, thank you. The committee says it's not done yet. Given the amount of new evidence and other witnesses coming forward, they'll reconvene for more public hearings in September. Joining me to talk about all of this is Paul Rosenzweig. He's principal at Red Branch Consulting, a professorial lecturer at George Washington University Law School. Paul, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
So if the hearings on Thursday night were essentially the season finale, not the series finale, what's left to be done? And has there been enough information set out for a DOJ to take action?
Well, those are two different questions. Let's answer the second one first. The committee has done an excellent job of pulling together the threads of the story about Donald Trump. I mean, think of where we've come from. Immediately after the events, Trump's defense was, it was just an incendiary speech. I had no idea what was going to happen. It's not my fault. Today, that defense rings hollow. And they've laid out a set of facts that really drives home the role that the president played in bringing the mob together, creating the situation that led to the assault on the Capitol, and also puts it in the context of that being the last of his plan to try and stay in office, involving, threatening his vice president, threatening to overturn the leadership at DOJ, that sort of thing. So at this point, I think A.G. Garland has a really difficult decision because the evidence is ample to support charges against the president. Now he's got to make the policy decision of, what's best for America. And I honestly don't know the answer to that. It's very facile to say, oh, just indict him, because who knows what that would lead to. Well, I don't envy him.
Well, let me follow up in this way. Adam Kinzinger basically said Trump did not fail to act. He chose not to act. From the perspective of whether a person gets indicted, is doing a bad act the same as not doing something when you should?
Well, in law, at least, as opposed to in morality, it's not doing something when you have a duty to do it. Right? I mean, I can watch a person die in the middle of the road, and if I have no obligation to help them, I'm not a criminal because I failed to do so. I'm a bad moral actor, and there's no doubt that President Trump is a bad moral actor. So the fundamental legal question is going to be whether or not the president had a duty to act, which is why I think that putting January 6th in the context of everything that happened beforehand is really important, because it's the story beforehand that creates the obligation on the president later. It's the story of him wanting to overturn the election that activates his obligation to prevent the violence because he called it in the first instance. And that's what gives him the obligation, and that's what makes the case.
One of the biggest headlines this week, and you've been tweeting about it, is the Secret Service's apparent loss of texts and information from January 5th and 6th due to some kind of upgrade. There is some kind of probe going on. I'm not positive it's criminal because it's with the Inspector General, but a probe is going on to find out what happened. I'm just curious, do you think this is something that could be a mistake, something inadvertent, or something intentional going on with the loss of all this data?
You know, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but nobody upgrades and migrates without making backups. It's just, nobody does that anymore. This isn't 1997. This is 2022, and everybody knows how to migrate a system while retaining the essential data that you have. And so it's either incompetence of, borderline criminal, or it's criminal malfeasance. Either way, it's not a good look for the Secret Service, especially since they hold themselves out as the cyber-aware agency that does cyber forensics better than even the FBI, which is their reputation. So they know computers, they know data retention, they know data recovery, and yet they can't seem to do it themselves. That's awful hard.
And by the way, just as a real brief question, when I said what's next, my thinking that you might say is there could be a Secret Service hearing in September that we get, that they're going to continue on that. Your thought?
Well, I think in the next set of hearings, there's a Secret Service hearing that's going to come. The committee hasn't done a lot publicly with the military side of this response, why the National Guard wasn't called out, what happened before then to make that so. They have done almost nothing with the funding of the riot. Several donors gave tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to create the rally on the ellipse. And what did they know? Where was that money come from? And then I guess last of all, there's the teasing connection between the rioters or the pro-Trumpers and the Supreme Court through Clarence Thomas's wife, and I suspect there'll be a hearing about that as well.
A lot to go. Just about a half a minute left, Paul. Quick question, which is President Trump may indeed announce that he's running for re-election in 2024. There's a Bill Barr memo that says don't go after a presidential candidate. What is your thought about the strategy of what Trump might be doing? Short answer.
Well, he thinks it's going to make it harder to charge him. I think that the more that he looks like he's a real candidate, the more likely it is he'll be charged earlier.
All right, Paul Rosenzweig, thank you so much for your time. Good to see you. Hope to see you again very soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next on WGN TV Political Report.
You have to weigh the right for women to make these decisions along with the right of the child that's not born yet.
This is not a choice for a woman.
Indiana lawmakers get ready to debate a set of bills that could restrict abortion in most cases. What to know before the special session starts tomorrow. We'll be right back.